here with you once again, as always, each and every Monday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Now, I'm going to get into some NBA stuff. We're going to talk about the 100-page safety plan. We're going to break some of that stuff down and just talk a little bit about how the NBA has worked very hard to come up with this plan. Jackie Bridges, thanks for tuning back in, has come up with a plan which they think will be able to allow them to get through their NBA restart, if you will. We will also talk a little bit about the Sixers, if you will. I got two places I want to go. I saw some stuff. One of the things is, since we're talking about this restart, there's been a lot of talk of how the layoff and being back or beginning this restart could bode very well for Philadelphia 76ers. And then there's also, Jen, what's going on, Charles? The other thing I want to talk about is apparently there are, excuse me, or not apparently, there are 5 burning questions surrounding my beloved Sixers, and we will talk a little bit about those in the next few minutes. Before I get into that, um, I want to definitely talk to you about the weekend I had. Friday was Juneteenth, and we celebrated here in Philadelphia with a rally um, hosted in part by one former NBA players, Rasheed Wallace and Steven Jackson. It was a great event. Um, I think a lot of people heard and understood and got the message from Steven Jackson. I have some video that I posted, on my page, so you can go check that out after the show today. And like he mentioned in that video, I'm referring to Steven Jackson. It's personal for him, and when you hear him talk, when you stand and you talk to him, you can hear it in his voice. He's determined, focused, if you will. And again, it definitely is personal for him, and he is seriously taking it that way. So kudos to him for that, and kudos to him for stopping into Philadelphia to share his message. Like he mentioned, he knows that he's going to places where he knows places will make noise, and he felt that much respect and thought that much of Philadelphia where he came here because he thought that we would make some noise, and he saw the noise that was made in the initial stages of these protests for George Floyd and all of the African Americans, male and female, who were murdered at the hands of racist police officers in our country today. So you can go back, like I said, after the show today, you can go back and you can check on that, and the videos are up. Now, I want to get into this 100-page um, safety plan that the NBA has instituted. And it's really crazy because, again, I give the NBA kudos again as much as I have been, because I feel like they have been doing the most work on the health and safety side to start their league back up. Although a lot of folk think that it may be a distraction to the efforts as far as the Black Lives Matters movements and all the protests and what's going on in society. I don't think personally. I don't think it will be a distraction. I think that it will help along. And like I mentioned last week, there are a lot of ways that it can help. Some of the players have even come up with ways that they could possibly help along with the movement. So there are a lot of mixed opinions about that, and we could talk about that at length another time. So a lot of the issues with the NBA has a lot of other teams following suit. Like, I've been reporting to you the most about the NBA and their progress and their aggressive nature at tackling precautions concerning the start the restart of the league and around the coronavirus. And now you see other teams and other leagues have been following suit. Like I reported to you earlier in my opening, my news and updates, that the NFL has now issued a tier for access into facilities. So they're beginning to look at this thing a little bit more diligently. So, the questions that go along with this with the NBA is so one of the things is what happens if a player tests for positive for COVID-19. Well, it's the norm, or what we call the norm now. The player will be isolated. He'll be retested to make sure there isn't a false positive. And if it is confirmed, then the player will begin the treatment and will undergo a period of rest and recovery, lasting at least the 14 days, which is the norm of what we do right now. So it's getting to the point where everything is still cautious. As you know, states have been opening up. Florida opened up for about a week, but then they had an outbreak of cases, and then they had to shut back down. And it's all because people hear that they can go out or things are loosening up, and then they just, that old cliche, you give them a rope, give them an inch, they take a mile or a yard. You know, uh, people have been not wearing masks. People have just been out in general in public and doing things that caused these outbreaks because we've all been separated from each other for so long. And again, like I mentioned when this first started, when we first started talking about this pandemic, and we telling people to wash their hands, and I kept reiterating that. Even made a little video of me washing my hands to show people we don't know what everybody does at home. We don't know how clean everybody is. So for everybody to just run out because things are loosening up and throw caution to the window, not a good thing. I keep telling people, and I'm feeling like my words are going to come true. I think we're going to be in this pandemic throughout the whole summer. It may not be in the form of a total quarantine like it had been, but we're going to be in this for a while. I think it's going to be the entire summer. And I think what's going to happen is the same thing that's been happening as other states around the country have been opening up. People are going to be too quick to get back out there again, throwing caution to the window, and it's going to be another outbreak. The CDC is already predicting another outbreak, another outbreak in October. So, with people again not adhering to the words that are being told to them, you're still in a pandemic. You still should wear a mask. Okay, it's not like just because things are lessening up or things are starting to reopen, if you will, it doesn't mean that the virus is gone. It doesn't just disappear that easily. How often will players be tested? What they're saying is that the league says regularly, which usually means less than daily. So we'll have to figure that out. They probably, I'm sure, for medical reasons and medical purposes, they're not going to give us a definite answer on how often these people or players and staff will be tested. How many people would have to test positive for the league to halt again? Well, that part they say is not spelled out, but it's clear that the league it has prepared for positive tests. The occurrence of a small or otherwise expected number of COVID-19 cases will not require a decision to suspend or cancel the resumption of the season. So it looks like what they're saying is if it's a small number, which they have prepared for, they will not cease the league. They would just quarantine those players. It also goes on to what says, what happens if a player doesn't want to go? If a team determines that a player is at higher risk for severe illness from COVID-19, he can be designated as a protected player who does not have to report and will not lose salary. So that's what I mentioned also last week, that Uh, Adam Silver put out there that players can make their own decision. He's giving them a date to inform their teams. If they do not want to attend, they will not be penalized if they do not go into the bubble and play. Um, the players also have the option to challenge the protected status, and a panel of physicians will have ultimate authority. So, however, if a player doesn't fall into either criteria and still declines to go, he will lose a corresponding number of game checks. So they broke it down like this. They say a player making 10 million per year will lose roughly 108,000 per game missed up to 14 games. So they will basically lose their salary for game salary for those 14 days, which would be the quarantine time frame. Um, what about older coaches? Will they be allowed? Teams might declare a coach or other staff member protected because of higher risk of severe illness. So players and coaches can be protected. What will life be like in Disney World? So here's the big part. Here's the big issue, and here's the big thing that everyone wants to know. So the players and staff cannot go into one another's rooms through July 21st. Players cannot socialize with players staying at the other hotels. 3 hotels are being used to limit the spread if there is an outbreak. Okay. Each team will have its own chef and food room that is open up to 24 hours a day. Though they can eat with other players outside, they will also be able to order room service using the app. Eventually, teams can have meals at some restaurants on the Disney campus that will be closed down to accommodate them. They might also be able to order from select local restaurants. Okay. Everyone on campus will be required to use a Disney Magic Band unless they're playing basketball or working out. These magic bands will be used as hotel room keys and to check in for corona testing and other medical screenings. So they have to wear a band when they're on the campus, not while they're playing or working out. So again, another tool that they are using, to monitor and take every precaution for a coronavirus outbreak. Uh, what is in the team travel party? All teams in the playoffs they will be allowed and to add and swap out members of travel party. The team can add 2 staffers after advancing past the first round of the playoffs and 2 more after the conference finals. That is something multiple coaches have been pushing the league to adopt. So they can add coaches as they progress along in the playoffs. Will they wear masks? Will they have to wear masks? Mask usage is required when indoors by everyone except when eating or when in an individual's room. They are not required when doing activities outside. Players, referees, and bench players and coaches who sit in the first row of seating will not be required to wear face masks during games. What will the game look like? Games at 3 different arenas. There will be no outside fans, of course. A limited number of players can attend these games. They are not if they are not playing. There will be limited media, team executives, league and union personnel, and even some sponsors allowed in. What will a game day in the bubble look like for a player? It will not be unlike a road game during the NBA season. There will be a team breakfast, a shoot around, a lunch, free time in the afternoon at the hotel, and then they will go back to the arenas for games. What happens if someone leaves the campus? No one will be stopped from leaving, but if someone leaves without approval and wants to re-enter, they will face at least a 10-day quarantine and have to undergo a deep nasal testing. Other testing on campus will be shallow nasal or shallow oral testing. So that's basically what it is for the NBA and their page. That was a summary of their 100-page safety plan for the bubble. So I think they took their time again, like I've been saying for the last several weeks. and have understood the seriousness of the coronavirus and how they have decided where we're not going to like hold you prisoner or make it seem like you're in prison. You can move around, but in certain places, yes, you have to wear a mask. In your room, you don't. You can go outside. You can talk to other players and things of that nature as long as you're outside. So they are trying to be health conscious, safety conscious, and make these players and staffers as comfortable as possible, almost giving them as much as they can as how things are in the real NBA when we're not in a pandemic. So, with that being said, folks, it is 11:42, 42 minutes past the 11 a.m. hour. I'm going to take another quick break. When I come back, we will begin with our Sixers talk. And like I said, it's two things how this pandemic could bode very well for the Sixers. We also have 5 burning questions that surround the Sixers going into the season and into the end of the season and into the summer. It's your boy D. You're tuned in to Sports Rap, Heat 100 Radio. I will see you on the other side in just a few minutes.